if anyone would love to beat the Jets and to end their winning streak, it would be the Mariners. That's why you bring in a big marquee like Juan Mata.
You need special players to special moments. They're at rock bottom.
If they're good enough, they may be able to push their case and sneak in to the top six.
He is the Iceman. He's such a leader and pioneer of Australian football. As soon as it come on, I was watching it. It was just it's an intriguing story, isn't it?
It would be a shock to a lot of people. The president of the Daniel Bennie fan club. Welcome to the Aussie Game podcast, where we talk all things Australian football. Coming up on this episode, a young Socceroo makes his World Cup case, scoring a screamer in England. Ange provides more entertainment on the Stick to Football show. In the A-League men, there's a Juan Mata masterclass. The Reds are red hot. Auckland smash 5 past the Knicks, and that sees the end of Chiefy. The A-League women's title race heats up. The Matildas are on their way, and we'll finish with our team of the week. And joining me tonight, as always, is the president of the Daniel Bennie fan club, Mopper. How are you, mate?
Good evening, everyone. Fantastic news overnight, and yes, I'm a massive fan. If you've listened to our podcasts over the last year, I've watched Daniel Bennie, not just last night, but for the last couple of years. The Asia Cup, where he scored a couple of goals. The World Cup, where he's a equal top goal scorer with Max Caputo. And I've got a saying an old saying in the media, Chief, and it's big news. Are you ready for this one? It's extra, extra. Read all about it. If anyone's looking for a right wing back or a right back, Daniel Bennie scores a screamer coming off the bench in the 80th minute to win the game for QPR last night. He scored in the 84th minute, and there's no need for an addition for our right back or right wing back spot because Popper, I'm telling you now, our leading goal scorer at the under-20s, as I said, with Max Caputo, is a perfect fit on the right-hand side. We've seen him deployed there, right back, right midfield, right wing back in the under-20s, and I think he's the perfect fit for your puzzle. As QPR remains stable in mid-table as well in a 3-1 win away to playoff-bound Hull. And they've got quite an injury list, QPR, in the last month, and it's given Daniel Bennie quite an extensive run over the last 4 to 6 weeks. And we also seen Jaylan Pearman also make his first appearance on the bench for a championship game. He didn't get on, but is in the reckoning, and it's due to their not total injury crisis, but they do have some in-depth injuries. But my word on the street, my friend, after you watch that goal, is what he's been doing for the last couple of years. He scored against Argentina. He scored against Cuba. He scored in the Asia Cup. He scores big goals. And he could be, at only 19, turning 20, could be the question mark that everyone is looking for down that right-hand side. It definitely gives the versatility in that space. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. Oh, 100%, mate. Because, we've seen Bennie deployed in all kinds of different spots. We've seen him at right back. We've seen him at right wing. We've seen him as a striker. So straight away, he adds that versatility. And I think being on the right of a back five, the expectation of that player would be to get forward. So he's the perfectly suited player. Whether Popovic would take that risk on a player, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But he's certainly got all the attributes that I think Popovic will be looking at. And as you said, he's 19 years old. He turns 20 in April. The thing about Bennie, and I've said this before, is that, Irankunda, he gets a lot of the headlines for this kind of age group, this age bracket. But Daniel Bennie is there toiling away in the championship. His best attribute, and he's such a talented player, but his best attribute is his work rate. And no doubt QPR will be thrilled with his work rate there and what he's doing. As you said, he came off the bench last night and just turned over a possession, opened up a bit of space for himself and rocketed that into the top corner. And we've seen that time and time again for the young Socceroos. We've seen it for Perth Glory as well when he was there as a kid. And he's just a sensational talent. And I just want to say that a few weeks back when he started a match, didn't have his best game, there was plenty of QPR fans on his back about his ability to play at this level. And I think, it is one goal, but I think in that moment he's proven his quality, and I hope that's quietened some of those doubters about how good he is at such a young age. And the future is so bright for him, and he would absolutely add a lot to the Socceroos squad for a World Cup. I would love to see him in this March squad. It would be a shock to a lot of people, but for people that have been following Daniel Bennie for a while, it's just reward, I think, for his performances over the last couple of years.
Yeah, that was exciting. I got a lot of text messages early this morning. Daniel Bennie, and it's just good to see. He scored that FA Cup goal early in the year. Unfortunately, he got knocked out, so he didn't get much more opportunities in the FA Cup with the youngsters. But yeah, look, I definitely think if you look back at his record through the junior levels, he's definitely can match it at senior level. I think he would have learned a lot against Italy as well. He probably missed a real key chance in that game and he had to compose himself. But did you see the resilience that he showed in against Argentina to score against one of the best teams the world has in that age bracket? So yeah, it's great to see him unleashing his potential at such a great age. And you're right, in the championship, we do have a lot of players at a really good profile around that 19 to 23 age bracket. So exciting for all Australians and all Australian fans to really see some of the highlight reels that we've been watching for the last couple of years.
Do you think he felt more at home playing against Hull, seeing those markings of the footy game there, made him think about his time back in the A League when he was playing on some of those pitches? I know we talk
I
about
did.
our
We're
pitches
not.
a lot, but
I know. Yeah. Obviously, we've. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the Super League's kicked off in the rugby league over there, and I know Brisbane was over there as well. But yeah, it's a very famous ground over there in Hull. And look, Hull was flying. They were in the playoffs, and I'm sure whatever line it was on, yeah, it was very interesting for a lot of Australian viewers when they watched the YouTube clip or watch it on X as a replay with those lines. But yeah, they'd probably asked twice, but whether they've got the right one, but they definitely have. And it was just one of those timing moments, wasn't
just a nice little 40-20
it?
from Daniel Bennie
Absolutely.
to put it in the top corner. All right, mate, take us through the rest of the
All right,
championship.
mate, let's go. Another fantastic night for some of the Australians. We can't forget Blackburn's Lewis Miller. We know he's out for the season, but his side picked up an important 1-0 win against arch rivals Preston. Obviously, of up their rivalries for a very long time, close to each other. Swansea pick up another good win with a 1-0 defeat of Bristol City, with Cam Burgess, a rock at the back, getting a clean sheet and playing a full game. So Swansea momentum continues after the departure of their coach only probably what seems 5 or 6 weeks ago. And then Watford, well, they had some return to form as well as they end a run of 7 games without a win with a 2-0 win over Derby and reignite their playoff chances moving up to ninth. Only 3 points behind Wrexham now. And this was an all Aussie clash as well that's seen Irankunda start. We haven't seen him start for a while. He's served his suspension, but he's been coming off the bench since he had his break. And this is the first time he's been back in the lineup, starting lineup. He got 68 minutes and was busy. And we also seen on the other side for Derby, Calum, who's Mr. Consistent, started. He played 62 minutes for Derby, with both teams still in the playoff hunt with that result as they hunt the top end of the table. Middlesbrough had a disappointing week. They lost midweek to Coventry and couldn't bounce back against Oxford. It was 0-0. Unfortunately for Borough, they dominated every part of the game. Their contenders, Ipswich, though, got beat by Wrexham, and and obviously Millwall lost as well, like we just previously said, which keeps them 6 points clear of third, whilst Coventry maintain their lead at the top with a win. Our boy Riley McGree was rested on the bench this time, but he did come on in the 60th minute, but he couldn't break the deadlock with 3 shots off target in a night that sees Borough very frustrated by their lack of finishing. They had plenty of chances in this one. Norwich would also rue their missed chances as their good run comes to an end with a 2-1 defeat over Birmingham, who's lifted themselves up to the top half of the table. Our goal scoring machine, Toure, turned provider instead of scorer last night with an assist in the 67th minute. He had 5 shots in a 71-minute performance. He had plenty of chances, but they couldn't turn around a poor start where they were 2-0 down early in the first 5-minute mark and the 14th minute mark that Birmingham scored. And honestly, Norwich were the better team in this one, so they're going to be very disappointed with that lacklustre first 15 minutes. It was a massive week on the other end of the table with Portsmouth sees them beat high flyers Millwall 3-1 away, and back-to-back wins sees them jump 6 points away from relegation zone, with Aiden Segacic, a second-half substitute in this one, coming on in the 70th minute. So a big win for Pompey. They needed it. They're another team that was struggling with injuries, and bounced back with a great win there midweek and another one last night. So that's pretty impressive. And then when you look at the table, as we discussed, we still have 13 games to go, but most teams of Aussies are in the playoff mix. You've got Middlesbrough there, McGree and Silvera chasing the title, but you've also got Derby in 8th, Watford in 9th, QPR 13th and Swansea in 14th, still in the mix. When you look at it, Wrexham's on 51. If we go down to Swansea or 14th, they're only 6 points off in 14th position. So it's very tight. And if I look at those playoff positions, to me, only Ipswich showed the consistency to be in there. Wrexham's charging home, but the other two, I think Millwall and Hull are definitely vulnerable. And I think it'd be great to see some Aussies in the playoff mix if we can push them up there. And hopefully Borough just keeps that distance and gets all promoted all the way. That's the wrap in the championship, mate. A very exciting night. As always, as we say, 10 teams always represented every week in the championship, so always plenty to tell.
Absolutely, mate. Thanks for that wrap. Let's go down to League One. Surprise loss for Cardiff. They're thumped 5-2 by Plymouth, and now cling on by 1 point in first. But a big gap to third, with Alex Robinson playing a full game in this one. And then Caleb Watts on the other side of the pitch for Plymouth. He played the first half but was substituted at halftime. Port Vale picked up a point. They don't get many of those, but they had a draw with Reading, 1-1. Joe Gauci played a full game in goals in that one. There's plenty of action in the Bundesliga, Serie A, and La Liga overnight tonight. So we'll report on those during the week. But up to Scotland, Cam Devlin and Calum Newhoff's Hearts. Both those boys are still out with injury, but they picked up an important 1-0 win at home to Falkirk, who have been pretty gutsy this season. They've taken a few scalps themselves. So, yeah, important to just keep that momentum for Hearts. Celtic and Rangers both play tonight. So, yeah, important to keep that gap. Nicholas Milanovic was an unused sub in Aberdeen's 3-2 loss to Dundee FC. And then Dundee United, they blow an opportunity to close that gap on Falkirk in 6th, conceding in the 91st minute to draw 1-1 with Kilmarnock. So Ashley Mano-Brewer played a full game in that one, and Ryan Strain comes in the 37th minute as an early substitution, and then Sapsford came on in the 72nd minute. What about Motherwell? On fire early, jumping out to a 2-0 lead. Oscar Priestman started in this one after he was sent off in that cup game. Samirin receives a red card, bit of a dubious one. There was plenty of conversation on X this morning about that one. It looked like very little contact, if any. So yeah, bit of play acting in that one. But the goals continue to flow. A big 5-0 win for Motherwell, and they close to 5 points of Rangers in second. Obviously, Rangers still to play tonight. Keanu Bacchus played the second half for St Mirren. Shout out to the Kiwi Elijah Just, who is having a really good season at Motherwell as well, alongside our Aussie boys. So there's 6 games to go in Scotland Upper until they split, and then they'll play each other once. It won't be home and away. So it's really coming down to the crunch. And I think Motherwell, as well as Hearts, right in that mix. I think if Celtic or Rangers start to drop any points, Motherwell's there to pounce.
Oh, they're in form. They've had a great year, and look, Celtic's got a terrible run coming up, and they've got Rangers after Europe. So, and I know Celtic's down in that first leg as well. They could be gone by the end of next week. So, and then they'll have the title probably to focus on only, barring a miracle. But look, you can't give how much praise you can to Motherwell. They've just been absolutely sensational. Only 5 points off. They'll cause a lot of trouble in the last 6 weeks. They could be the team that actually decides who wins. Whoever can beat them, because they've got results and they just keep piling on the pressure. And it's just great to see such a great representation across Motherwell and Hearts this year. So we'll be cheering on both teams to obviously knock off Rangers and Celtic. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Aussie fans that go for either, with past history with a lot of players and coaches that we've had at both clubs. But I think it's time changing our guard, and we'll be cheering on the underdogs in this one. All right, thanks for that wrap, mate. Let's go to Austria. Hartberg beat Grazier in an all-Aussie clash, 1-0 win with Jed Drew coming on at half-time. Jacob Italiano played 90 minutes in this one too. This is his second game back from injury for Grazier. He played 8. He just got subbed off just before the end of the game. So good result there for Jed Drew's team, and they continued their rise up the table in fourth. And Grazier down the bottom, unfortunately, in second last in that one. In Holland, this was breathtaking. I was following this game by the second. Max Ballard starts in a crucial game at home for NAC Breda. They were playing Volendam, who were down the bottom as well. And NAC Breda, again, they did this last week to Rifles, and they scored a crucial goal in the 87th minute and put back-to-back wins together for the first time and moved 4 points clear of relegation, having played one more game. The bottom teams play tonight, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. In the USA, we have the MLS returning, and we had the first game last night as Charlotte opened proceedings with Archie Goodwin on the bench. It was an unused sub as they drew away to St. Louis 1-1. So we'll be covering a lot of Australian players making the move to America. Well, it's back. We'll be back reporting on every player that we can find in the MLS, including the latest recruit of Kai Truan. And we hope Archie Goodwin gets some time as the season goes on. And that's a wrap overseas, my friend.
Just before we head over to domestic matters, obviously Ange Postecoglou made his full appearance on the Stick to Football show, and we both watched it. Was there anything that you took from Ange that was interesting that you wanted to share?
Oh, look, I think it's always great to get an insight. You always learn something more, don't you? You very rarely get to see him fully exposed for that full length of time. It was just great to hear the stories again, a little bit more in depth and detail that we probably already knew. But I didn't learn nothing new, but he dead set wants a job back, doesn't he? He's keen to go.
He's bored. He's bored out of his mind.
It sounds like it. He's not a man at home, is he? But look, I'm sure he's waiting for the right opportunity. A lot of learning shared by him, a lot of insight on players again, which was very good. It was a very constructive interview, wasn't it? And great to see him get a bit personal about South Melbourne again. We knew about that World Club Championship, sorry. So that was great to hear a few more inside stories on that one. But it's just great to hear all the stories that, validate his, leadership, his style, and his passion for the game. It's really good. And he just reiterated, I think, a lot of positive points, and probably needed to measure it out for the media over there after a huge amount. I think it was the first episode, was it a million viewers or something, the quickest to 1 million views or something. Like, I know I was hanging for this. Yeah, I had a late night that night. As soon as it come on, I was watching it. It was just it's an intriguing story, isn't it? But look, bit of honesty about Notts Forest, but I think we all knew he said he'd made the wrong decision. But it's good to see, though. He said he thought he had capable players, but again, you don't get time in that industry over there. So, what about yourself? Do you take any good points?
Yeah, it's probably the Notts Forest point, and we knew that that was probably a regret of his, but for him to kind of come out and say it. But you can see in the fact that, it's about his kind of excitement was working with the Gibbs White or an Elliot Anderson and wanting to mold those types of players in the way that he can mold players. And probably one of the criticisms, and I thought this was unfair when it came out, but about him speaking about his time at Spurs was kind of no admission of any fault. And I think there were definitely some elements in there where he said, I put my hand up for that one, and we should have done better in that one. Speaking about things like bringing Mickey van der Ven back too soon from injury. So yeah, it was just great, and we've heard the stories about him and his time with South Melbourne was Puskas and how influential he was on his career, and it's always just great to hear. And I think like we're obviously kind of coming at it from a really biased angle, but just looking through like the comments on YouTube and stuff like it, like everyone was so positive and just loved to hear how authentic he was in what he's doing. So it's just really good. And yeah, as you said, he's just itching to. Says he doesn't like the school drop offs. He can't deal with that. He'd much rather deal with player signings and having to work out how to make some in-game decisions to pick apart a game. So yeah, fantastic interview from Ange, and yeah, always just great to hear from him. And yeah, let's hope that one of those opportunities comes up. He did definitely say that he's not going to go back to Celtic, which is kind of part of the rumours. And yeah, Ange just generally doesn't go back, does he? Once he's kind of done a gig and tends to move forward. So yeah, we'll see what's next for him, and hopefully something's around the corner in the off season, which would be fantastic.
Oh, look, Australian viewers crave listening to those kind of stories, don't they? Because he's a pioneer. He actually proves and shows to all Australians that we can win at whatever level, and he believes it, and in the style of football that he loves. So I think he's such a leader and pioneer of Australian football. I can't wait to him, like when he's finished coaching over there. Hopefully, we can capture these people back home to develop the next generation, or bring something back to the game. Because if we do bring these pioneers together, it will be astonishing. And we haven't seen Craig Johnson's great interview on Stan as well. It's offered such great insight, and it's just they're so valuable to our next generation, aren't they? And you know what I mean. I still remember when he told me that was his favourite moment, the FA Cup final. That was the first game I ever watched on TV. Like that at my age, it was just and I was a fan hooked back then. So it just goes to show how much influence and impact they have on Australian football fans and community alike.
I've heard Ange say before that when he eventually stops coaching, he's going to, put himself on a Greek island with a cocktail in hand or something like that.
Don't
But
believe it.
based on him not being, he can't sit still now. So I think he's just going to keep going. So no, as I said, let's hope we see him on a touchline sooner rather than later doing his thing. So it'll be awesome to see. All right, Mopper, let's talk A-League men. Let's start on Friday night. What a great place to start. Friday night, Coopers Stadium. Geez, Adelaide were good. Thrashing Perth Glory. 4-0. Definitely hitting some great form at the back end of the season. Might be season over for Perth Glory. We mentioned last week they're on a bit of a road trip. So, yeah, I'm not sure they're going to be able to turn it around from here based on what they're doing just at the moment. Want to give some credit to the Perth fans who travelled in some good numbers across the Nullarbor. I think that's right. But yeah, they turned out and they did a sensational job putting noise for them on a tough night for their team. 1 minute opened the scoring with a free kick for Adelaide United. Matt Sutton probably could have done a bit better in goals. He probably disappointed with that effort. And then the man, Johnny Yell, do you want to sing again, Mopper, or you're not? You're good.
Oh, mate. Go, Johnny, go. I love it. Johnny, be
Um,
good.
Johnny Yell doubled the home side's advantage when Adelaide pinched possession, resulting in Luki Ivanovic's shot being saved by Sutton. But Yell drove in the rebound from the edge of the box. Probably made it look easier than it was, that bouncing ball, but did very well to put that one in. And then just after halftime, the Reds broke quickly, and then they had 3 goals. Yaya DeCooley slid in Ryan White. Beautiful run by Ryan White. Probably 50-meter run to get onto that one, and then had the composure to cut it back to the Luki Ivanovic, who basically had a wide open goal to tap it into. Bit of controversy in the second half. Adriano Labib was in the side for the suspended Brian Kaltak, was sent off before the decision was overturned and downgraded to a yellow. I think that was fair enough. His foot was very high, but he'd got the ball and kicked it into Brodie Burkett. And yeah, I think that was the right decision in the end. Luke Dizelle then made his impact off the bench, sliding through a few players before firing home. Very nice individual goal from him. Just to round off the scoring, so yeah, 4-0 result for the Reds, completely comprehensive. I thought Adam Griffiths in the post-match press conference, his typical style, said he learnt nothing from the game. But yeah, it was just one of those nights for Perth Glory. They just weren't at it, or they weren't able to be at it because Adelaide United were so good. Geez, mate, that midfield five of Alagic, White, Muniz, Yule, DeCooley, they're just looking so good at the moment. And except for Muniz, they're all 23 and under, plus Ivanovic up front at 20. Just want to give credit also to Jay Barnett. I think he's doing a really good job at right back for the injured Dylan Pereus. You know, Jay Barnett's kind of central midfielder by trade, but he's doing a good job and he's getting up and back and providing plenty for Adelaide United. But yeah, what a performance that was, mate.
Oh, look, I was worried when Craig Goodwin went down a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, who's going to lead this team? Because the confidence grows when Goodwin's in the side, but it's just like next production line, isn't it? We've seen it. We've seen the untapped potential. I still remember previewing Adelaide at the start of the year. We all knew, and we thought they'd just falter out at the end of the year because they were too young, but they're just excitable, aren't they? They're like the Newcastle midfield as well. They're just excitable. They're really good technically and play really good brand of football. So hats off to the whole, from the top to the bottom at Adelaide, because they just keep producing and the football is just so good to watch. On Perth's side, look, I think, Griffiths, at least they'll go into next year or at the end of this season. Okay, they'll probably falter away, but they'll get a good look at their squad. And I think at least they got direction next year. We've seen some potential, but it's very difficult when you're looking at what other clubs are doing, bringing through the young talent, gaining a lot in the January transfer window as well. I think they just have to reassess Perth, and I think once they get their balance right next year, at least they've shown enough, I think, compared to the previous year where I was a bit more worried. And I'm pretty sure Griffiths will bounce back with a pre-season underneath him. So I won't give up hope on Perth. They're still, just going through those learning moments, aren't they, and the experiences. So, but yeah, you can't stop this Adelaide side. They just keep rolling on, and it's great to watch. And they're producing great football that's going to put them at the top end of the table almost, and put some pressure on these top three sides, which is fantastic.
Tom Lawrence is a big out for Perth Glory as well. Like when they were at their best this season, he was right in the thick of it and he was scoring goals and he was providing assists. So yeah, he's definitely a big out for them, but they just can't seem to get those combinations right at the moment. And look, I hope they can jag a few wins on the road on this road trip they're on. But yeah, I don't hold out too much hope for them at the back end of the season to sneak into the finals, unfortunately.
All right, let's look at next in line Saturday afternoon, and it was an early game over due to the time difference in Auckland and Wellington. So Auckland smashed Wellington 5-0 in this New Zealand derby, leading to Giancarlo Italiano's resignation as Phoenix coach, saying it's just unacceptable in derbies to lose like this, and the wheels have been coming off for the last couple of weeks. Let's look at the action. The first goal was an own goal to Josh Alawumi, who, after a punt upfield from Jake Reich, was headed into his goal by the next keeper. It was a bit of a calamity. Jesse Randall then drove in a shot from the edge of the box to make it 2. I'm happy for this bloke, Lamo Meyer, he's had so many chances in the last few weeks, got a third. He would have been relieved with that goal. Then Jesse Randall got his second just before the half time with a nice dink to make it 4-0 at half time. And it was already written on the wall, wasn't it? And then Josh Alame again was substituted at half time due to his error. The coach just punted him and put Alabi Kelly Heald in, but they conceded one more late to make it 5-0. The aggregate score for the derby is 18-4. The gap in this derby has just gotten bigger across 6 games, with Auckland winning all 6. After the 2023-2024 season, Phoenix lost Alex Poulsen, Finn Sermon, Kraev, Oscar Sawada, Ben Old, and they've just never been adequately replaced. They tried hard in January transfer market to reinforce, but the players that we just announced, A-grade quality, and they just have not been able to replace them. And then on the other half, when you look at the other side of the pitch, what about Auckland? Dangerous as ever, rising to the top at the right time of the year. After a little blip about a month ago, they're still there, and they'll be hunting the Jets down right to the end. And I think they play each other, I think, in 3 weeks' time. I might be correct on that one. I don't think it's too far away, but Auckland are just showing the potential and what they have as a club, and looking very sharp in second position, chasing down the Jets.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Just on Giancarlo Italiano, I think in terms of his resignation, I think it was time for him to step aside, and credit to him for making that decision. And, it's probably the right time to just go after this big loss and to give the Phoenix, something for the rest of the season, a new voice, and seeing what they might be able to make out of the rest of the season. But as you read those names out before, I feel really sorry for him. He did have a very, very good 23-24 season. That was his first season as a professional coach, and he was pushing the Mariners right up for the Premier's plate the whole season, pushed them very close. They unfortunately just got knocked out before the grand final. So what an amazing season that was for him in his very first season as a head coach. And then from that point, as I said, losing some of those quality of players, and there was some other ones. They're just kind of the highlights, but there were some other ones that were crucial in that season, and then even last season as well, lost some crucial players, but they just haven't been able to adequately replace them. And you can only work with what you've got, and he's tinkered with things. He's played the higher line, and he's tried different variations of things. But I just think it's time, particularly if he's not. For Wellington Phoenix, they either needed to back him in the off season and give him some spending money to go out there and buy some players, or you need to make a change and go in a different direction. So, yeah, I think it's probably just the best thing for all parties. He said he was going to go out and have a few drinks last night, which I hope he did, to both drown his sorrows, but also celebrate what he was able to achieve at Wellington Phoenix. And yeah, look, Auckland, they weren't at their best against Sydney FC the other night, but they've hit back, and geez, they put out a post after the game, said Derby with a question mark, really rubbing it into the Wellington Phoenix. But as you mentioned, that aggregate score of 18-4 across the 6 games, and yeah, it's very much been one-way traffic since Auckland has been in the competition in the New Zealand Derby.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. All right, let's move on to the next one, Chief. You've got this one, Sydney and Brisbane.
Yep, Sydney FC bounced back from that last-minute heartache, drawing against Auckland FC during the week to beat Brisbane Roar 1-0. All eyes on Ufuk Talay and Al Hassan Toure, but Talay again rotated his starting side, Kispe coming in for Campuzano, so that meant Stamatolopoulos led the line. Sydney FC really dominated this one, but it took a moment of magic to decide the game. Thiago Quintal, he's done it again, scored his 4th goal in 5 matches, rocketing his shot into the top corner. What a player this kid is. Sydney FC, what's the right mix in their front 6? I think Talay's still trying to work that out. You've mentioned before, Muppa, about, with these new signings coming in, trying to find that balance. Al Hassan Toure made a late appearance off the bench. I was watching there's about 2 minutes to go where he could have drove on and had a shot, and he decided to retain possession. Probably a smart move given what happened during the week. But what about Thiago Quintal, mate? Is he the Iceman for Sydney FC? It's so good to see him kicking on at such a young age and doing some things at Sydney FC, isn't it?
I remember one of our viewers, I can't remember who it was, I do apologise, but, said about Ken Quintal follow the same path as Segicic, and he's certainly going down that path, isn't he? And more importantly, starting every week, where Segicic was coming off the bench for the majority. So he just does it again, isn't he? And he is the Iceman. He's just absolutely thriving on the responsibility as a young player and taking it on with no fear. And it's just great to see him really show his attributes, because he's got plenty, hasn't he? And yeah, another goal, another important goal too. And for Sydney FC, and yeah, he's a real X factor now, isn't he? And Iceman, absolutely, he's coming up big, and he's got him plenty of points over the last month. So I definitely think Quintal is definitely on a big path. He's looking great. Another one from the under-20s.
Yeah, absolutely. But you say it was an important goal, and when you do look at it in the context of this weekend, spoiler alert, the Jets won. So they won, Auckland FC won, Adelaide United won. So it was so important for Sydney FC to get this win, to keep in touch with this top five that are kind of starting to break away a little bit now, and throw Melbourne Victory into that mix as well. So yeah, Sydney FC, after that kind of drop points to Auckland FC, they definitely wanted to maintain their momentum. So yeah, it was such an important result to get them, and just obviously the 1-0 win, but the 3 points are absolutely massive on Brisbane. And I hope I'm not putting too many lines through too many teams. I'm probably going off a bit too early, as I tend to do. But Brisbane season really hanging by a thread. Only 1 point from their last 5 games. Really big next 3 games coming up. They've got 3 home games, and they're hosting Perth, the Wanderers, and Wellington Phoenix, who are the current bottom 3 in the table. So they
Wow.
really, they
Ooh,
really need to pick up.
massive opportunity.
Yeah, they really need to pick up 9 points from those 3 games. And in the context of the last 8 games they've got, they only actually play one of the current top 6 teams, which is Sydney FC. Play them again. So as much as they haven't been in the best form, they do have a real opportunity. The draw is opening up for them. If they're good enough, they may be able to push their case and sneak in to the top 6, maybe at the expense of MacArthur. So it'll be very interesting to see how they go. As I said, the draw's in their favour. They are playing the teams that they need to kind of leapfrog and get ahead of. So wonder if Michael Valkanis can turn them around from this point.
Oh, definitely. Look, they've got D'Agostino leading the line. They just need to transition a little bit quicker and take control a little bit more of the ball. It's just, I know their defensive resilience and they can really hold their line, but I think it needs to be a little bit quicker in transition. D'Agostino will be wanting more ball and he can hit the back of the net. So if they can provide it, there's definitely an opportunity in those next 3 games. All those 3 teams are on the rocks, aren't they? They're at rock bottom. So and at home, hopefully the pitch is good and they can just continue to push on, because that once teams get on a run, confidence rises, and if they can find that balance in their mentality, I'm pretty sure they'll come home strong. And we want that, don't we? Because it was probably the first week that I've seen this league split for a very long time. It's been pretty even all the way through, but you're just seeing down the bottom, it just doesn't look good now for the Mariners and the Wanderers. And the top 4 have taken off, and Victory are hanging in there, and we've seen even City slump, which we'll talk about next. So I think this is the first time where I look at the table and go, is the horse starting to bolt? So it'll be very interesting for Brisbane. They definitely have a great opportunity, though. And Sydney FC, not clinical, but still getting the job done to a point. Just can't seem to, that next gear is what's missing, but maybe in the back half and the back run, that's what we'll probably see the best of Sydney once they get that balance. All right, mate. Let's move on to the absolute Melbourne derby. And I get to the pleasure of calling this, because every derby needs a special moment and special players, and didn't it unfold on Saturday night? It was beautiful to watch. And it all started with the special one. Jan Marta opened the scoring, chipping Patrick Beach from 35 yards to open the scoring. Then Marta almost added a second minutes later when Dennis Generu rattled the crossbar before Max Caputo equalised for City with a great header from Marcus Yunus cross. So Caputo still in the goals, which is doing fantastic. Then Mohamed misses a sitter from a few yards out, and this was very costly after being teed up by Yunus in the 37th minute. It was crucial, this one, because in the second half, the Marta show continued, and he was at it again in the 64th minute, receiving a ball from substitute Grimaldi and driving a shot past Patrick Beach from outside the box that sent the crowd nuts. And Melbourne Victory just piled on the pressure. And they tailed in the second half. The commentators said Melbourne City hadn't had a shot for 45 minutes. And we've seen this in the A-League. Not so much in Asian Champions League, but in the A-League, they've stalemated in certain periods of the game. And as the game came to a close, it was Marta again, this time the provider, when he slid in Santos, who cut inside and killed a beautiful shot in the far post, sending the crowd absolutely nuts again. And it was a beautiful scene to watch, isn't it? The Martyr show. You need special players to special moments, and he provided every one of them. It was a really simplistic performance, wasn't it, from one of the best that we've seen in his time in the A-League.
Oh, what a pleasure it is to have him in our competition, and we've spoken at length about, his time at the Wanderers and how he wasn't used effectively, and definitely some people probably thought that his time might be done, but it just shows what a new environment can do. And we called this in our preview of the season that he very much had the potential to do some good things at Melbourne Victory with all that movement around him. But to be honest, he's moving just as well as any of them in his way, because yeah, he's right up there in terms of their fitness, and he's running out games for 90 minutes, and huge credit to him. And he's so motivated and he's so passionate to do so well. But how cool was it? And the own goal from Josh Oluwanyemi, plenty of people are saying, "Oh no, this is going to go viral around the world for all the wrong reasons." And then just a couple of hours later, we see a moment like that from Mata, that chip, and then all of a sudden the league's on a map for all the right reasons. And you see the likes of Bruno Fernandes commenting, saying how good a shot it was and all this kind of stuff. And that's the things you want to see. That's why you bring in a big marquee like Juan Mata for the pool of the worldwide audience, but then also just his pure class on the field. And to spot Patrick Beach off his line, and it's one thing we saw it in today's game, where Lockie Bayliss tried to get one past Alex Robinson and just didn't get it. So there's one thing to see a keeper off his line, but there's another thing to actually execute that shot. And it was just done so perfectly, and just what an absolute delight it is to see him in the A-League. And then look, the second one as well, it's one thing to receive that ball from Grimaldi, but how many times do we see that ball just fly over the crossbar? But he just puts it perfectly in the top corner. Patrick Beach had no chance. But just, yeah, all game, little touches, little drive backs, little Cruyff turns, and mate, there's probably a 15-minute highlight package of just Juan Mata's touches in the Melbourne derby, and it was just so fantastic to see.
Yep, and Melbourne City go down again, and they had the draining two-legged ties that they needed to get a result out of, which they did to get them through to the round of 16 in the Asian Champions League, which is an absolute windfall financially for the club. Will allow them to reinvest, but they just can't seem to get the balance right like they did early in the year, and it's probably taken its toll. It's probably taken a little edge off, and losing Truan's obviously taken a little bit more edge off if they just struggled to get the balance. I thought his substitutions in the second half had little impact as he just changed it too much. I put it all in Victory's favour, I thought, at the end, and Victory just got stronger as the game went on. So where's this leave City? Because I know they're just outside still, but they're dropping, and they've got some big games coming up in Asia that obviously they'll have to prioritise, because I can't see them getting anywhere near the top now.
No, I don't. I definitely don't think they might be able to sneak into the finals, but I can't see them pushing up towards the top. And it's interesting you say about the substitutions, because Melbourne Victory substitutions, obviously Grimaldi came on, had an impact. Santos came on, had an impact. Even Burgess, did a job for them at the top of the pitch as well. So, and Vidmar mentioned post game when he was talking to Michael Zapponi that it's almost about getting a fit team on the pitch at the moment. They've got their injuries, but I think they're quite fatigued with how much football they've had to play. And you're right, they are going to prioritise the Asian Champions League over the league wherever possible. And I think that's going to really be detrimental for them. So, yeah, they're just definitely not going in the right direction. And I want to say though that Marcus Eunice, what an impact that he's had since he signed. He was by far their best player
Fantastic.
out there last night, and provided that assist for Caputo and put that one on the plate for Mohamed as well. So yeah, he tried his socks off, and but I just think that they weren't in the match at all last night, were they? They it would, if they were to go into the sheds at 2-1 up, that would have been unbelievable, because they barely laid a glove on Melbourne Victory. They were just way too good.
That's it. And Melbourne Victory's got Adelaide at home next on Friday night, so that'll be an absolute cracker. We know how exciting those derby games are. And Melbourne City, the road just gets tougher. They're going to Auckland on Saturday afternoon. So big trips and big games for both Melbourne teams next week. They'll have it all to do over there at in Auckland, and Melbourne Victory will have a very tasty game against Adelaide. Geez, I hope the crowd lifts over there in Melbourne. Get out. There's too much happening, too much excitement, Melbourne fans. It deserves a full house or close to it because Adelaide United's coming to town. So should be exciting. So let's see what happens in that one. All right, mate. Let's move over to today's action, and it was Mariners and Wanderers.
Just want to touch quickly on the crowds, as you said, because we obviously had some great crowds on the weekend. All the first three games hit over 10,000 in Adelaide, Wellington, and then Sydney FC, and then over 20 in the Derby, the Melbourne Derby, and then we saw the Jets today with a strong crowd as well. The Mariners probably the only ones that fell under that five-figure mark. So well done to everyone for getting out and supporting your team over the weekend. All right, Mariners Wanderers. How the Mariners got a win out of this one, I will never know. But they've done it again. Shocking slow start for the Mariners. They were, as the cliche goes, they were still in the sheds. But they conceded a goal within the first 10 minutes when Ryan Fraser cut it back to Angus Thurgate. Good to see him getting a goal. He scored plenty for Western United, but just hasn't quite been his season at the Wanderers. The Mariners' goal lived charmed life, though, in the remainder of the first half, with the Wanderers rattling the crossbar, that one from Brandon Borrello. And then there was a passage of play where they hit the crossbar, Redmayne made a save, and then James Donachie cleared one off the line, all in the sequence of about 10 seconds. But somehow they got into the sheds at only 1-0 down. They then pulled back an early goal in the second half. A nice little cheeky chip from Ali Orga. He's a special player. A substitute, Hiroshi Ibusuki, then put the Wanderers back in front before a nice header from Nathaniel Blair leveled things up at 2-2. But it was the Mariners who got the decisive goal when James Donachie was the first to pounce on a shot that hit the post and he volleyed home. So, mate, that's 3 wins in a row for the Mariners. And I know you said that they're in the mix of the teams struggling, but they're up to 7th on the ladder. And with the MacArthur losing today, they are 3 points off the finals and massive F3 derby against the Jets next weekend. If anyone would love to beat the Jets and to end their winning streak, it would be the Mariners. I'm heading up there next weekend with my dad and my brother. I can't wait. It's going to be a massive crowd. It's going to be an awesome game, and I can't wait to get up there for it.
Mate, you're going to be very lucky because you're going to be treated to football. But I tell you what, that first half performance by Central Coast, I watched the first half, and obviously my plan was then to watch the other game's first half. And Central Coast Mariners could not put 2 or 3 passes together. The Mariners just, well, all at sea. I don't know how Western Sydney didn't go in with a bigger lead. They had 21 shots in this one and 66% possession. They absolutely dominated it. I turned off at half time. You flicked me a message while I was watching Newcastle, and I just cannot believe that the Mariners, and I say this all the time, they embarrass me all the time. But credit to them, because obviously in the second half they've come back and not just once, twice, but 3 times. Like that is just, again, the spirit with lies within that club is just unbelievable. I say it all the time. And to get that win, but what about Western Sydney? I just don't know what to say for them. They are rock bottom at the moment, and not just rock bottom with the results, but just confidence. Because honestly, they should have just won this game. But anyway, they've got it all to do still, and they still can't fix the problem of executing in that final third. But well, even though they scored 2 goals, but honestly, there should have been 5 or 6 before halftime.
Well, yeah, another good contingent of Wanderers fans travelled up for this one too. So well done to them, and feel so sorry. They must have thought, here we go, we're in here, we're getting a win. But no.
But I'm so glad Mariners won because, like you said, it sets up next week an absolutely incredible situation where the Jets are now won 8 in a row, and Central Coast have won 3 in a row. And can you imagine? I hope the public up there just absolutely sells this one out. Like, we haven't seen it for a long time up there, but it may have the potential because Newcastle's fans are coming back and Central Coast must see this revival. So I think it'll be extraordinary. What time is it on Saturday at 5 o'clock? So perfect time. So yeah, you're lucky you got tickets because I think it'll be box office up there, and I just can't wait to see what happens. It's just the Mariners are back. They're back, and I just can't believe it, but they're back.
Yeah, if you see us up there, come or see me up there, I should say, come say hello. I'd love to chat to fans of the Mariners and the Jets, and get a sense of what your feelings are about your club at the moment. That'd be really cool insight that we could bring back to the podcast. So yeah, make sure you
Absolutely.
come and say hello.
And you're taking the number one Central Coast Mariners supporter up there with you, which is your dad,
Mate,
which is
mate,
he'll be
Roscoe
very proud.
he's gonna be in his element. So
He's
yeah.
in town. Watch out, Central Coast. Here he comes. Oh, okay. Let's go to the final game. And Jets versus Macarthur. What a healthy crowd. Great to see the Jets fill up that stadium a lot more. It was a good crowd. And Jets showed possession in the first half, but Macarthur create the better chances. Harry Sawyer, I don't know how he didn't score today, but he had the best opportunities in the first half. He had 7 shots in the first half alone, 3 on target, 1 blocked, and a couple of misses. He missed some big moments in that first half. He was causing Newcastle all sorts of trouble, but couldn't find the back of the net, and that was the problem. But MacArthur was stifling the Jets as they struggled for rhythm and connection. I don't think this was the Jets' best performance at all, but they showed a real maturity in this one, which I quite enjoyed. A bit of a backs to wall because MacArthur certainly gave them a lot of trouble in that first half. But let's look at the Jets' performance in the first half. Clayton Taylor probably had the best chance in the 29th minute. He come into the box at a rapid rate and put a tame shot in after the Jets had probably their best build-up. And then Dobson took it on himself with a driving run forward and a cracking shot, but it was saved. And the halftime went in at 0-0 with both sides. What I seen was possessing a lot of talent on the bench in this one. Obviously, MacArthur having that painful Champions League draw during the week, which knocked them out of the tournament. And as the second half come out, Lockie Bayliss, well, yes, don't need too many words to describe this one. We talked about a special player of Marta. Lockie Bayliss will be on the same pedestal. He's on fire, and he does it again in the 53rd minute. After MacArthur failed to clear and make an absolute mess of it inside the box, as Lockie slots it into the bottom corner. Then shortly after, Bayliss nearly catches out MacArthur again with a long-range shot, which we were talking about Martyrs, but just saved. We'd nearly catch them on their heels. Sawyer and Duke, a second-half substitute, come on, and they look dangerous together. In the 58th minute, they had a great chance. Sawyer setting up Duke. He just couldn't tap it in, couldn't outstretch leg. In the 70th minute, Duke had another chance. We probably should hit the target, but to put it away, but didn't. Just shot wide to the left. It was a bit of a, back foot. He needed to get back and give him a bit more space, but he didn't have the room. And Newcastle now, with all MacArthur's pressure in that last 10 minutes, hang on, and have now won 8 on the bounce, and the crowd of 14,035 are probably heading down the highway next week, hopefully, and to sell out that Central Coast Mariners Stadium, because it was great to see 14,035 people there at the game, seeing them score a 1-0 victory, and that puts them 4 points clear of Auckland and 7 points clear of Sydney. So and Adelaide. So massive performance by the Jets and massive F3 derby next week.
Yeah, they definitely weren't at their best today, the Newcastle Jets, but they often say that's a sign of a champion team, that they can grind out results when they're not at their best. So I think you're right in terms of they showed a different side of the Jets today, and one that's, I'm sure that they don't get that many clean sheets, but when you're not at your best, sometimes you need to grind out these results, and they certainly did that. Miller Stojowski made a whole heap of changes for MacArthur. Lots of youngsters in the lineup, and the likes of Bratton and Mitch Duke, Economides on the bench. And I wonder if he was trying to match Newcastle's energy, particularly in that midfield, with his lineup. Obviously, Robinson in goals for Philip Curto as well, who's had some bad mistakes over the last couple of weeks as well. But I thought MacArthur were very good, and they definitely missed some good chances. Duke missed a heap. Sawyer, as you said, missed a heap. Calum Talbot from right back put plenty over the bar as well. So on another day, they definitely could have beaten the Jets, but it wasn't to be. And yeah, the Jets just continue to roll on, 8 wins in a row. And MacArthur really sitting on the brink of that top 6. And, now they can at least focus on the league. But yeah, really interesting time in their season with 8 games to go to see if they can, keep touch with that top 5 and keep their spot in the top 6.
Yep, MacArthur at home against Western Sydney in the Western Sydney derby on Saturday at 7:35. So, yeah, it'll be crucial. There'll be a big crowd in that one as well. We could have some really good crowds next week. Exciting stuff. All right, my friend, anything on the A-League before we move on to the Ninja A-League women?
I just wanted to briefly touch on the ladder because, as you said, I think we're probably starting to see a bit of that separation with. I think that top 5 is starting to kind of break away. So that's the Jets, Auckland FC, Sydney FC, Adelaide United, and Melbourne Victory. Still 8 games to go, so lots can happen. But I think I'd be surprised if any of those top 5 now drop out of the top 6, and certainly kind of Perth, Wellington, and Western Sydney at the bottom seem to be breaking away at the other end.
Yeah, look, MacArthur sits on 6, and they were in great form before their Asia Champions League 2 performances. So, yeah, I expect them to bounce right back. They were looking very sharp before they entered that 2-legged tie. With Western Sydney at home next week, they'll be after a big performance after having a full week to prepare for it. So, yeah, unfortunately, the bottom half, well, we never know. Central Coast FC derby, you never know. But yeah, Melbourne City has to go away to Auckland. And then, like we said, though, Brisbane goes 3 home games, so anything can happen. But yeah, you're right. I think that top 6 is going to be very difficult to break into.
All right, mate. Let's wrap the A-League women's competition. Melbourne Victory draw 1-1 with Wellington Phoenix. A penalty from Rihanna Policiana is cancelled out by a late strike by Michaela Woods, set up by a teenage sensation Pia Vlock. In the City versus Mariners game, Briley Henry, who had a fantastic game, she opens the scoring after being assisted by Holly McNamara. Defender Rebecca Stott then scored a rare goal for her, City's second, and then 18 Keane, nice little bit of trickery, scored a beauty with an in and away, and then a low drive for City's third. Izzy Gomez got a late consolation for the Mariners in this one. Canberra put Western Sydney Wanderers to the sword, winning 3-0 in this one. 2 sensational strikes from Josie Aliciano headlined this dominant win for Canberra. The second definitely had some spiders under threat up there in the top corner. Michelle Heyman scored Canberra's third, ending an 8-game scoreless streak just before she heads into camp for the Matildas. Perth then beat Newcastle 3-2. Emma Dundas celebrated her young Matildas call-up this week with a goal for the Jets before Gabby Holler scored a sensational chip from 30 yards. Lena Ayres then made a late run into the box with a scissor kick for the Jets, but Perth weren't done and came storming home with goals to Clancy Westaway and Tegan McKenna to take the win. And then just in the game that's just finished, Adelaide beat Brisbane 2-0 to move into third place on the A-League women's ladder, with goals coming from Ella Tonkin and Emily Hodgson. All right, Mopper, now it's time for our team of the week. In goals is Harrison Devonish Mears for Sydney FC, Jay Barnett at right back, as mentioned before, been filling in very well for Adelaide United. Big Cam Burgess at the back, alongside Rebecca Stott in the defence, and then Lucas Moragas at left back, who was really good for the Mariners today. Johnny Yeo, Denny Jonro, and Ryan White in the midfield. And then what about this front line? Daniel Bennie, of course, our superstar, Briley Henry, and Melina Ayres. And what about our super sub for the week, Mopper? Who you got?
I can't go past the raging midfield bull for Motherwell. I know we've picked him on several team selections before, but Oscar Priestman, after a very unlucky midweek red card where he slipped over, He bounced back on the weekend, had a smashing 5-0 win, and is now the heart of the midfield for Motherwell, leading the way every week, which I think's excellent recognition for a Motherwell side that's on fire. So Oscar Priestman has my nod this weekend.
Thanks, Mupper. What a big week in Australian football, as it always is. And a big week coming up as well. Of course, our Matildas will start to arrive in camp from tomorrow. That's Monday. And as the build-up continues for that big game against Philippines on Sunday next week. So, yeah, absolutely looking forward to that one. Plenty of midweek action. As we mentioned, plenty of leagues in action overnight tonight. So we'll bring that to you midweek as well. Always lots happening, Mopper.
Yes, and shout out to Tegan Micah. Our thoughts are out with a bad injury, concussion. She's out of the Matildas squad. I'm sure she'll be wishing the Matildas all the best. She's a great character of the game and wish her well in her recovery. And congratulations, Chloe Lincoln, who has been performing at the under 23s, under 20s level and representing the Matildas as well in the last 12 to 24 months. She's done a fantastic job. Takes Tegan Micah's spot, but our thoughts go out to Tegan Micah with that bad injury news that has put her out of the Asia Cup.
Yeah, devastating for Tegan Micah, but an opportunity for Chloe Lincoln to come into the squad now. So, all right, mate, that's going to do us for tonight. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back midweek, but in the meantime, enjoy your football.
All the best, everyone.